Hello, I'm Steve Scott and welcome to Nightwatch. Tonight we're fighting crime from the air with the crew of the Gwent and South Wales police helicopter. Plus we're joining forces on the ground with the officers from Greater Manchester Police. Coming up on the show, motorway madness. A car charges the wrong way up the motorway. 3 men and a boat, drama in the Bristol Channel, and a show of force as police crack down on drunks.
You want to feel safe when you go for a drink. You don't want to be intimidated by drunken people around you. It's not a nice feeling, it spoils your night. We make sure that doesn't happen.
First, a hit-and-run accident that turns into a potential disaster when the driver fleeing the scene heads the wrong way up a busy motorway. He's in the fast lane, hurtling towards all the other traffic. He's got to be stopped, and quickly. And the only way police can keep up with him is to follow him in the air. Jonathan Hill reports.
It's a late spring evening when the South and East Wales Air Support Unit helicopter is called to a car chase with a difference.
Thank goodness this was a particularly unusual incident. The driver of the vehicle had collided with another vehicle earlier on before we actually got on scene.
But the driver had sped away from the accident, leaving a woman injured.
And then driven onto the motorway, on the wrong side of the motorway, travelling eastbound towards London on the westbound carriageway.
This was motorway madness at its most lethal. Something had to be done.
Straight away then, our primary consideration is how are we going to stop an obviously fatal collision involving this vehicle.
South Wales squad cars are tailing him, but he's heading for Gwent.
With the communication systems we have in the aircraft, we can talk to both forces at the same time. So while we were directing resources from the South Wales area in onto this vehicle, we were also speaking to Gwent at the same time to get them to actually close the westbound carriageway of the motorway. We have an additional piece of equipment on the aircraft called a microwave downlink. And what we're able to do is to actually transmit live images of what we are looking at with the camera systems on the aircraft to the control rooms. And both Gwent and South Wales control rooms were able to look at these images. Because of that, they're able to make informed decisions. Prior to this type of equipment being available, the only cameras they would have would be the ones actually situated along the motorways at regular intervals. And that would be very difficult then for the camera operator in the control room to switch from camera to camera to camera as the vehicle progresses along the motorway. Our ability to transmit these pictures gives a continuous image of the progress of the vehicle.
The danger was building as the rogue driver sped into unsuspecting traffic.
I think at one stage in the actual incident, the vehicle narrowly misses a coach coming in the opposite direction. Now, a head-on collision would have had horrendous results involving a coach full of people and the coach actually having to swerve to try and avoid it and narrowly missing a car on its near side. If we have a coach travelling the opposite direction, 50 mile an hour, and this suspect vehicle travelling at 50 mile an hour, it's 100 miles an hour impact, and there's going to be fatalities.
With the chase speeding towards Newport, Gwent police close the westbound motorway at the Brynglas Tunnel.
The next thing to do is to try and bring this vehicle to a stop. The vehicle had been travelling for some distance with a police patrol car on the correct side of the carriageway, parallel to it, with the two-tones on and the blue lights on. There was also another vehicle in front of that first one to try and warn oncoming traffic on the opposite carriageway that something unusual was going on. We had the vehicle illuminated with a searchlight, so any oncoming vehicles would obviously see again there's an illuminated one coming straight towards them, and desperately trying to avoid a collision. We can't put a patrol car or a traffic car on the same side as the carriageway as the suspect vehicle, because that's obviously increasing the danger level then, in that you'd have two vehicles travelling the wrong way up a motorway. So what we did then to try and bring the vehicle to a stop was arrange for a traffic vehicle to have a stinger device deployed further on up the motorway in towards Gwent, where it would deflate the tyres safely of the vehicle and then bring it to a stop.
The stinger has become an invaluable tool in the police's kit, but in this case, it was vital the motorway was empty before the police used it. The police officer on the left of the picture has laid the stinger out across the road. With all 4 tyres gone, the driver can't continue, but because of his speed, it still takes him a while to stop.
Thank God the vehicle was stopped safely and nobody was injured. I can't really fathom the reason why he didn't stop when there's a traffic car just on the left-hand side of him, on the correct side of the motorway, with the 2 tones going and the blue lights going and a helicopter shining a searchlight. I can't really fathom the reason why that person didn't stop.
As the driver waves at the officers coming to arrest him, there remains just one question. Why did he do it?
I think his reasoning was that he was looking for a right-hand turn off the motorway. Well, as far as I'm aware, he's going to have to wait until he gets to a set of traffic lights in London before he can make a right-hand turn off the motorway. I think he was quite annoyed about having the tyres deflated on his vehicle, but it's either that or a head-on collision.
With more than 80 miles of coast to police, the helicopter crew has to be versatile. Everything from commercial shipping to caravan parks.
We cover all the South Wales and Gwent coastline, which is from ultimately the Severn Bridge in the east to the Gower Peninsula up as far as the Lacha Estuary Bridge in the west. In the summer we do get several Coast Guard and coastal related incidents, such as the child who goes missing in Porthcawl from the mother on the beach, the person who goes missing on the Lilo, the people who intend to commit suicide and drive the cars off the cliff, and those that don't. I mean, what we're able to achieve in these sort of incidents is to, if not finding the people, we're able to reassure not only the police but their relatives that they haven't actually did what they said they intended to do. And of course, you know, what better way of searching the cliffline than by helicopter?
And it was this searching capability that came into play in the Bristol Channel.
I'm actually a member of the Penarth Lifeboat crew in my spare time, so I've got a pager, and the pager was activated. I switched the radio on and I could hear the Mayday being generated.
A boat had capsized just off the coast.
It wasn't far away from Flatholm, which is flying time a relatively short distance from here. We're capable of accomplishing overwater operations. So as the duty crew, we made the decision that yes, we should attend that particular incident.
We quickly found a vessel that was floating upside down just off the Flatholm Island. We saw that the casualties were in the water. They were clinging to the boat, but fortunately they all had life jackets on. And another passing vessel was trying to render assistance.
The people in the water needed to be got out of there fast, something the police helicopter couldn't do.
The phrase search and rescue is something that I wouldn't use. We can search, but we can't rescue. We can search and locate and coordinate other vessels to the area and confirm that maybe we have persons in the water. And by the mere nature of the sea, the different currents and the tides and the winds, it's possible that those 3 people aren't going to stay together. They could go in three different directions. And from our vantage point, depending on how high we go, it's likely that we could keep an eye on all 3 people.
So the helicopter's been scrambled, the lifeboat is on its way, but time is against them. Watch the drama unfold after the break. Welcome back. We're continuing the story of 3 men in a boat. At least they were in a boat until it capsized in the Bristol Channel. The Mayday signal has been sent. The Coast Guard has responded. A lifeboat is on its way, as is the police helicopter, which can oversee the operation from its vantage point high above the drama. For the lifeboat crew, though, there's a cruel twist. 2 of them are related to the men they're trying to rescue.
The Coast Guard at Mumbles coordinated the rescue and called for the Penarth lifeboat to be launched.
Obviously, with the Mayday situation and people in the water, that's time to move at top speed, as they say. So I just grabbed the handheld radio and made my way down to the station. It was that point I actually heard the Mayday myself on the radio and recognised the voice as Mike Hill, one of our ex-crew members, putting the Mayday out. Strange enough, in the process of gathering the information, when speaking to the Coast Guards, it transpired that the yacht that had capsized was a yacht that belonged to my elder brother, Robert.
But the family connection didn't end there.
I was met by my brother Andrew, who was the launching authority on that day, and he looked a bit worried to me. He informed me that my other brother Robert had capsized the boat. Initially it was thought that maybe I shouldn't go out on that service because of the connection, but it was decided that I would go out as a 4th man and sort of relay the correct information back as soon as possible.
The race was on to reach the stricken yacht.
The lifeboats were making their way from Penarth, and other vessels were at scene, attending and assisting with that particular incident. These persons appeared to be, I wouldn't say safe and well, but they were being located and they were with the vessel.
The helicopter was able to guide the lifeboat into the yacht's exact location and update both the boat and the Coast Guard on the precise situation.
I spend a lot of time at sea on the lifeboat, and when we get involved with incidents where there's a helicopter involved, we know that it's there as a reassurance. So I'm sure those people in the water on that particular day may have found some comfort that there was a helicopter above them.
The weather was worse than the pictures suggest.
It was blowing a 5 to 6 westerly on the day, which was quite choppy. There was large rogue waves out there that were quite difficult to negotiate. The water temperature very rarely comes above 12 to 13 degrees, even in the summer, and hypothermia can set in very, very quickly. My niece, who was one of the casualties, being quite young, smaller people, they succumb to hypothermia a lot quicker. And when we get a call with people in the water, we respond to it very quickly and treat it with the utmost urgency.
This was now a race against time. The lifeboat is on its way, while the police helicopter hovers overhead. Rob Winston explains its role.
1, to find the casualties. 2, to talk the lifeboat in to the area where the casualties could be extracted. And then 3, to ensure that there was no one in the water that hadn't been accounted for.
The young girl who'd also been on the boat had been taken to Flatholm Island, but the remaining 3 were still in the water.
The helicopter was hovering over the target area, and we just home in on that. It's invaluable sometimes.
Within seconds of the first lifeboat arriving, all 3 men are hauled safely on board. They'd been in the water for around 20 minutes. What had saved them was the fact that they were prepared for an emergency, even though they were only a short distance from where they'd set off. Once all 3 were on board, the lifeboat then takes them to Flatholm to join the young girl.
On this particular incident, it wasn't long after we arrived that rescue helicopter, the RAF helicopter, came from Chivenor, Rescue 169. They landed at Flatholm. The casualties had been recovered onto the island, and they were taken into Blackweir, into the ambulance station.
Simeon Rabiotti went ashore to ensure his relatives and friends were okay.
Because it was a couple of family members of mine, I did go onto the island, and I wanted to see for myself in the helicopter. I popped into the helicopter, the search and rescue helicopter, to check. As soon as I'd seen that they were cold but reasonably all right, I relayed that back to the station and to my brother Andrew. And then we had to get on with the job of trying to salvage the upturned yacht. We wanted to get it out of the shipping channel because it was a hazard to shipping. It wasn't the nature of the yacht, it wasn't going to sink. It could have caused more trouble. We tried fixing lines to it to right it. Then we decided to try and tie it to one of the buoys out there. There was too much tide going. It broke loose. We had one of the crew in the water trying to do that, and it was decided that it was too risky for us to continue any longer. And then we just told the Coast Guard that there was a problem, and we had to leave it.
The yacht washed up 2 days later on the North Devon coast.
What can be a pleasant afternoon sailing can turn into a situation in seconds, and that's sadly what happened to them on this particular day. A rogue wave, and everything else. Everybody ended up in the water and had to be airlifted away.
Who is actually responsible for policing the coastline?
Any Coast Guard related incidents are normally directed by the Coast Guard themselves. We then base our search on the requests given to us by them. But at the same time, we're able to appraise them or what police resources are available. Although we've got the winching capabilities on the aircraft, what we are able to do is quickly locate the casualties.
Even though it can't rescue over water, its sophisticated communication system gives it a pivotal role.
We are primarily a policing unit, but within the role of the constable is the protection of life and property, so that expands our role to cover those of the fire, ambulance and other services. And we do work to support them.
These helicopters, such as the air ambulances, are much more specialised.
Within South Wales, there is an air ambulance. And so where there is a requirement for a helicopter at the scene of, say, an accident, or at least where some casualty needs evacuating by air, there is a specific resource. And in any event that our helicopter is not specifically equipped to do that as a routine task, although it can be done.
As we saw earlier, if a number of people need to be airlifted, the RAF rescue helicopter is called in. The airspace can get a little crowded.
Although we both sort of operate in helicopters, we have two specific and unique roles to perform. And quite often we will, because of our location along the South Wales coast, be called initially, knowing that their tasking time from the North Devon coast, certainly out of hours, may take a little bit longer. However, when they arrive, they've got greater endurance. So we may go, clear the area quickly, and let them continue a lot longer after we could ever retain, because their fuel capability is a lot greater.
But the police helicopter's versatility, particularly with the thermal imager, enables it to link with the other major emergency service, the fire brigade.
For example, the thermal camera in detecting heat can detect intense heat. So the officer in the helicopter is able to inform fire service personnel of seats of fire that they may not be aware of. Indeed, with forest fires, we have the spate fires, particularly over the school holidays. It's not surprising that if you get dry weather and young people, we're going to have fires. And so the helicopter can be used to downlink live video images to the fire service, because they have the receiving capability, and we can direct them from the air. We can show them what's going on from the air, and they can then utilise their resources to best effect. And also, if we do see people setting fires, then we can record what they're up to, and we can use it for post-incident procedures, hopefully arrests, and we can that way publicise firstly the dangers of doing it, the dangers to other people of doing it, and that they can be caught.
forest fires are a seasonal hazard. But an almost everyday occurrence somewhere in South Wales or Gwent are car fires.
We're constantly on the lookout for anything unusual. Particularly, we investigate any palms of smoke that we may see. It might have been a stolen vehicle that had just been set alight, or someone's premises that had just caught fire. A vehicle had been just set on fire. What's evident from this shot is the effect the heat is having on nearby buildings. If you look closely, you can see the heat radiating off the fire of the stolen vehicle on the caravan. Now, my first thought in this particular instance was there may be a small gas bottle in the caravan, as you're likely to expect, and what danger that they may cause to the spectators who were quickly gathering at the scene. Children are always attracted to fire engines or police vehicles and blue lights, and they quickly gathered. I think the members of the public that arrive in here are completely oblivious to the dangers of which they're confronted, particularly with the potential for the vehicle exploding with the fuel tank, or there may be a gas bottle in the caravan, or something even worse. On this particular occasion, we were something like 600 to 700 feet high. We are completely safe, I believe. We are able to zoom in on the cameras, so in actual fact, we look closer than what we actually are.
More than just calling the fire brigade, the helicopter from its vantage point high above the flames can monitor the emergency.
This is the thermal image camera working, and of course it's not just a nighttime camera, it's a daytime camera as well. In fact, this incident is taking place at 4:30 in the afternoon.
First, people need to be evacuated.
My first consideration when officers arrive was to get the area sterile, to get these people away, and there we can see a local panda car arrive and is talking to the kiddies and trying to get them away from the scene as quickly as they can. Of course, not just the heat radiated from the vehicles we may have some toxic gases as well. Some of the children are standing actually within the smoke plume. That's the fire service arriving at the front of the property, and of course we are also able to talk to the fire service direct, and it's not unusual for us to tell the fire officers the best routes into a fire, and not only just the safest way in, but the safest way out as well.
But the thermal imager has a particular use for firefighters.
What we are able to do is to advise the fire service when they arrive of what buildings are immediately threatened by the radiated heat. What building is most likely to burst into flames first, what building is cool, and we have flown fire officers to give them the bird's eye view.
It's a routine incident, but it could have sinister origins.
It seems to be a regular occurrence, unfortunately, for car thieves to set the vehicles on fire. They may wish to destroy any forensic evidence they've got, like either DNA or fingerprint. However, I just believe they get a certain thrill out of seeing a vehicle being completely and utterly destroyed. And of course, the impact on the individual, the owner of that vehicle, is quite substantial.
After the break, we're back on terra firma with officers from Greater Manchester as they call time on drunken violence in their patch. We're on the streets with them in a moment. Welcome back to Nightwatch. I'm Steve Scott. Next tonight, we go out on the streets of Salford with the Greater Manchester Police, who are staging a show of force against drunken yobs. There are 700 pubs in Salford, so officers have to go mob-handed to make sure their zero-tolerance approach has instant impact.
Okay, for those that don't know, my name's Dave Henthal, I'm the OPU Sergeant based at Salford. The reason you're here tonight, if you don't already know, is because you're going to be working an AMEC operation, which stands for the Alcohol Misuse Enforcement Campaign. The issues of licence are going to be linked with violent crime in Salford, which is a big issue for us. There's 700 pubs in Salford in the division, and 90% of those 700 have actually applied to vary the licence. The idea of one of these weekends is that we go out with a visible show of strength, and we actually go and visit licensees and engage with licensees and show them that we're going to be supervising. There's our colleagues with us from the trading standards and also local authority out with us tonight, actually on the ground. So there's not just the police, it's also other agencies that are involved as well. One of the things that we're going to be trying to tackle tonight is antisocial behaviour. Some of the areas that we're going to be concentrating on are what, as we term, hotspot areas. We will be dealing with particularly young people who have had drink. We're going to be trying to confiscate that alcohol from them. We're going to be making arrests if appropriate, engaging with the parents, perhaps even calling the parents up and asking them to come and collect them if they've had too much to drink.
No, I'm not being frightened. No, I'm not throwing bottles.
There's a lady up the road reported two young girls fighting outside the shop. People are frightened to go in and get what they need. So they phoned us, and these two girls have clearly been fighting, but we haven't seen anything and they're not telling us anything, so I wouldn't really want to leave her on her own on the street. 14, she's very drunk and it's not the greatest place round here, so we'll take her home, just for safety's sake. Unless she carries on swearing, then we'll take her with us, but go and sit in that corner over there. Who said you're getting done for anything? We're just... Whoa, whoa, whoa. Stop swearing for one. All right, we're just taking you home.
You're not, we're taking you home, making sure you're safe.
To be honest, love, at 14 years old, you should be getting done for it. You shouldn't be out on the street blind drunk and fighting.
So what right is supposed to do, best mate?
She's trying to phone her nan to come and pick her up, but her nan didn't want to know.
What are you doing to what?
Sit down.
Help me!
The new licensing laws came into effect on 24th of November, and to use a licensee's expression, it's early doors yet. We don't know what the impact's going to be, but we're ready. And one of the ways we're tackling it with is that we will expect licensees to follow the law rigidly.
One of the criticisms that the police sometimes get is that licensees don't tend to see the police on a regular basis. This opportunity gives us a chance to meet the licensee and also for the licensee to meet some of the local police in order that they can air any concerns or views that they've got about policing locally at the moment. It's going quite well at the moment, and everyone seems to be au fait with the laws and the regulations at the moment, with the exception of the first one that we've done tonight. So yeah, it's going quite well. We've done the visits to 5 licensed premises, and in general, with the one exception, places were generally very, very quiet, and it would appear that the Licensing Act hasn't really made a great deal of difference. Albeit at this time of the night it is quiet, it may be that some people are waiting until later on in the evening to come out, and because of that eventuality, we'll still have to remain vigilant. We'll still have to be out on the streets and still patrolling to make sure that no events do take place, or if they do take place, we can deal with them very proactively.
We do have issues around alcohol-related offences, be they criminal damage offences, violent crime offences, or just antisocial behaviour. And the new Licensing Act has brought us a whole load of new challenges around those offences and the times in which they are committed. We now have fixed penalty tickets available for us, which can be issued on the street, where somebody can receive an instant £80 fine for an occasion of antisocial behaviour. So what we've tried to do as a division is to actually make those interventions earlier in the evening, to warn people about the behaviour at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, as perhaps they're on the way to the pubs at the early stages of the evening, rather than just being there to sweep up the pieces at closing time. And I think that has been a really successful tactic for us.
Is it going off in here? Right. Well, three of them ran out the back when we got here. It was here, him.
You seen the left that's on the table over his head?
So they say here. Come and have a sit down in it. Come and have a sit down in here. What's happened? Where's your girlfriend? Just filled him in? All right, just hold on together. Just what you're falling over. Is that all you're worried about, love?
Very sorry, I'm very sorry.
Where does she live? Right, well, we'll walk there, won't we?
Just shush while I explain to the police.
Well, let's go to your flat and we'll talk there, eh? Well, we found the lad and we wasn't sure if he'd been run over by the taxi minibus that was there. He, for some reason, ran off when we got there. Upon speaking to him, he kept saying he'd fallen over, but he'd clearly been beaten up by somebody. So we brought him back to this address behind us where his ex-girlfriend lives.
Right, what's happened to you?
And his girlfriend's window's been smashed, but she doesn't know by who. So we're at a loss with that as well, really.
Misuse of alcohol undoubtedly fuels crime. This happens in Salford like anywhere else. You want to feel safe when you go for a drink. You don't want to be intimidated by drunken people around you. It's not a nice feeling, it spoils your night. We make sure that doesn't happen.
Immediate.
Affirmative.
Just been speed cameraed. I'll call up in a second to let comms know.
Yeah, no problems. 50.
8107 at scene.
Crashed into the barrier, 3 lads jumped out, legged it through the estate.
Back in a good hole. Got the church on your right side. Elwood, I think it's called. You were right there, thinking.
Basically what's happening is we've run a PNC check on the registration that's showing on the rear of the vehicle. We've contacted the PNC keeper who's pointed out that her vehicle is sitting outside her house. So what we've done is we've done what we call a VIN check. Each vehicle has its own vehicle identification number. I've just checked that out on the PNC and it's showing that this vehicle was stolen with keys from an earlier job in the area. We're going to stay with it and have it recovered because as it's been stolen with keys, it's been preserved for fingerprints. So we're going to have it recovered, it's going to be taken away and forensics are going to have a good look at it and see if they get any evidence off it. Burglaries where people break into houses specifically to get keys. Sometimes we have what we call hook and cane, where if people leave the keys lying about on full view, you can put a cane through, hook the keys, retrieve them through the letterbox. The lesson in that is for anyone, if they've got the keys, keep them well away from the front door and out of sight from anyone. Excuse me 1 second.
Unfortunately, what we've seen over the last few years is as the level of vehicle security has improved, we are now getting more and more vehicles taken either by means of robbery, where keys are actually being taken from people, or a growing trend is actually people having their keys stolen from the home address. A variety of devious means employed by our criminals. Also, when people are filling up with petrol, for example, calling into a newsagent for a newspaper, even at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, people often sort of forget the fact that the thieves could be about, they could be watching what they're doing. So the number of people that actually leaves the vehicle keys in the vehicle when they're filling up with petrol is quite staggering, and a number of vehicles have been stolen by those means.
We've got to go to a no-speech 999 at an address on Broughton Park where somebody's obviously rang up the police, either on purpose or not, and our communicators not been able to speak to anybody on the other end of the line. So we've got to go down and just double check everything's in order.
There's a light on, lad. Oh, hiya, sir. It's police. Sorry, there's nothing to worry about. All we've had is someone's rung 999 from the address.
Me?
I don't know.
From here.
Have you made a phone call at all in a little while?
No.
Any
Have you
young
not?
kids in the house?
My next door neighbour's little baby just played with the phone. I doubt what she's doing.
It may have just been an accident. She just pushed all the numbers or something like that.
Sorry,
It happens.
Just do 1471 and just see what number comes up.
Come in.
Is that all right?
We're just chatting with a chap inside now. Would appear the next door neighbour's kids have been in and have been messing about, so it's false call, good intent by the sound of it. It's just as I thought it might be, young kids on the phone, they're just pressing a few buttons. Invariably it's 999. I don't know why. It's just one of them things. The kids just aim for it. Just spoke to the gentleman. I've double checked doing a 1471 on his phone call, and I've checked with our comms that the number that they've been given is correct and everything tallies up, so it's all in order.
We attended the flat earlier on. There's a civil dispute going on between a landlord and his tenant. Tenant's moving out today, but he is in arrears with his rent, which is obviously the landlord's going to have to reclaim that through the civil courts. It's not a police matter. The landlord has returned, or it's been alleged that he's made threats to harm him if he doesn't settle the debt basically in the next 2 weeks, which obviously isn't acceptable. So that does then come under the umbrella of the criminal law. Right. Unfortunately, I'm locking you up for threats, for harassment. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something that you're later relying in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Okay?
What's this one?
The information he's just given me and he wants to make a statement, I have to lock you up for harassment.
He's going to threaten me.
Right. You're going to have to discuss this. You're going to have to discuss this under interview. I can't. This constitutes an interview now. You're under arrest. I'm sorry. Right. He's been locked up at the moment for harassment, and we'll be dealing with him suitably. We'll take a statement from the tenant, and we'll put it to him in an interview and see what he's got to say for himself about that.
Next tonight, car crime, the opportunist variety. They grab a vehicle for the night, and when they've finished with it, you might not want it back. That's in a moment. Every year in the UK, 375,000 vehicles are stolen. In many cases, they're opportunists looking to borrow a car for the night. At best, they leave the vehicle abandoned but intact. At worst, well, see for yourself.
Got to report this vehicle. It's got its windscreen smashed and its passenger window smashed, and it's run into the curse. No reports of who's the owner, etc. There's some tools inside the van, so it looks like somebody's work vehicle.
Just taking a few glass samples. They've smashed the window, so they've obviously used something. So particles would have gone on the clothing, and basically forensics can establish that.
We've PNC'd the vehicle. It's got a registered keeper, but there's no reports that the vehicle's been stolen at the present. The taxis coincides with the registration plate. There's a gentleman coming up now. It looks like he's a workman. Whether that might be him or not, we're not sure. There's your answer. The gentleman who did walk up was the owner of the vehicle. Was just coming back to go to the vehicle. He left it about 11 o'clock today. Parts up, was working in Manchester, so he's gone and left it. He's just realised he's just come back up. He wanted to drive it away now, but he's got damage to the front windscreen, bad damage to the front windscreen. It's all bented in. It's not fit to be driven.
At the call that we're going to be going to a thieves on, is it to a house?
onto a vehicle?
It's onto a vehicle. One of them had a stick trying to force the window, and they've all made up on footwear and tracksuits and dark clothing. So we're just trying to sort of make it to different areas to try and catch them.
Hey, up. How long have you been here?
10 minutes.
Right, just come over here with me. I'm going to conduct a stop search. All right. Have you had one of these done before? No? Just means because you're in the vicinity of an incident that's been reported and you fit the description.
Not even done now.
Right. It's irrelevant. I've got the power under section on the stop search, yeah? I'll issue you with the form to say that I've done it. All right.
Not done now, though.
The key point with stop and search is actually the officer's suspicion, and if that suspicion is reasonable or not, and that is what it all hinges on. So, for example, if an offence takes place, for example, a vehicle is broken into, and a description is given of an offender running from the scene, if a police officer in the vicinity stops a person that matches that description, then they're entitled to search them because the legislation allows that to take place. It's not about making random searches of people who we just think might be up to no good. We must be intelligence-led and the grounds must be met.
Why what supposed to have done anyway?
I've not found anything on mine, the lad that I've spoken to. Obviously these days teenagers all wear dark hooded clothing tops, you know, we're pretty much all in the same boat. However, they're in a neighbouring street, they're in the same number as was passed to us. So obviously we're going to stop, speak to them. We issued them with the relevant documentation, and as I say, we checked them out. There's nothing untoward really, and we're quite happy with them being in the area at this present moment.
You'd setting fires, I didn't catch what it was to. But it was obviously something important enough to say it was on an immediate.
Flickering. Yeah, it's a park bench that's on fire a little bit.
There's been an effect on the log. From Jude explained, caller said that the ewes also took her wheelie bin.
Yeah.
And the husband chased after them and recovered them. The ewes had made off.
I found the wheels.
I think this is another wheelie bin.
On 5097.
The fire brigade are en route anyway. It's just another problem we've got youths causing.
Here's information for the patrols.
Youths causing annoyance.
You sitting out, kids? Right. Well, get yourselves off. You don't want to inhale all this smoke. Go back over there.
Who's done that?
Don't know. That's why I'm here. Bit of a problem at the minute in the area. Setting fire to things is a crime they can quite freely get away with, in all honesty. I mean, they've stolen someone's wheelie bin and dropped something in it and it's burnt. Any evidence in relation to catching them goes. And then as soon as the seals come in, then they go as well. That's about it, really. You might as well go, lads. There's not a right lot here for you, is there now? Is it?
Yeah, I was on the way to that job apparently to get it before I diverted to this job, so I won't be going, unfortunately.
I'm creating an hazard.
They're wheels off a bin. Bastard kid episode. It's going to be hot, that, so don't go touching it.
Don't go sitting on it, will you not?
I've got a report of a road traffic accident that happened at Winton, area of Eccles, just outside of Worsley. We're going to nip down now and just see exactly what's what. As far as we can gather, there's one male in the road who hopefully is not too seriously injured, and we have a car what's in the wall.
From 11633.
We've just arrived on scene following this report of a road traffic accident. There's obviously other officers here, but we're going to see if we can assist in any way, shape or form.
The main concern here obviously is going to be getting the injured party into the ambulance and away from to get any treatment that he needs to get at this moment in time. We'll deal with anything else that needs dealing with afterwards, so we're just going to go and have a look.
The chap who's been involved in the accident is just with the ambulance crew at the moment. His injuries aren't thought to be life-threatening. He's got a few bruises to his arms, complaining of injuries to his legs as well. He will be going off to hospital shortly to be checked over for any more permanent damage. We'll just have a look at the vehicle and see what we can see.
I was just in the house, heard a great bang, came out, and there's a car embedded in that tree. There was a man on the ground.
As you can see, he's made quite a mess. He's obviously been travelling at some speed. He's demolished part of this tree and took out the garden wall here. So speed more than likely is a factor in what's happened here today.
We're just trying to establish who the car belongs to and the owners of this house, who unfortunately are going to come back from the Trafford Centre to find that the wall has been demolished.
Just obviously going to speak to a few witnesses who may have seen the incident from over there. We could do with getting this tree out of the way as well. Well, we do get involved in all kinds of incidents, as you can see. But it's just to free up the road somewhat.
Have you been on the tree course?
Yes, I've been on the tree removal course. That's why it's my job to do that. We've just spoken to one of the witnesses who was first on scene. He was a chap who phoned for the police and the ambulance to attend. When he first came out of his house, he saw the two people involved in the accident stood outside of the vehicle, so he wasn't able to say who was driving. It transpires one of them was making admissions that he didn't have any driving licence, he wasn't insured, and he was quite concerned that he might be going to prison. Inquiries are still ongoing at the moment with the owner of the vehicle, trying to establish that, but it does appear that it does belong to the chap who's made the admissions and subsequently been arrested.
This lady's just come back to find that car's embedded in the front wall, unfortunately. She's not been too bad about it. She's managed to furnish us with a lot of details of what we'll need for a road traffic accident report. Vehicle recovery services, police jargon VRS, will be coming out within the hour to recover the vehicle. What they do with it from there on in will be up to them. I would imagine it will be scrapped in the state that it's in.
A snapshot of car crime on the streets of Salford, ending this edition of Nightwatch. I'm Steve Scott. Join me next time. Good night.